Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar with the Collective Genius. I'm here with Leon Barnes. He's going to walk through all things Collective Genius with you guys. I can see people are just starting to come in now, so we'll give it a breather, let everybody join, and then we'll get started. Just as a quick question for everybody that attending as you're coming in, just give me a thumbs up or a quick comment if you're already familiar with the Collective Genius and the work that they do in the community. And then Leon, if you want, in the meantime, if you want to just go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself before we really take a deep dive in, that'd be great.
Sure, let everyone get into the webinar here, and then I'm sure that we'll have some questions later on this intro. Leon Barnes, as Michael mentioned, I'm the VP of Membership for the Collective Genius. We are a real estate investor community, now 14 years in. In those 14 years, we have realized that there are different levels. As all of you jumping on this webinar realize that in your career right now, you're definitely in a different space than you will be in the next 5 to 10 years. And so there's levels to this group. We have 3 different levels, over 375 members nationwide. And as Michael and I were just discussing pregame, we have probably 10, 15 that are overseas as well that invest in the United States. And so we are a peer-to-peer group that helps each other grow. And really the biggest thing that we do more than anything is suppress learning curve. That's what it is. You have a blueprint from others that are doing the business at a super high level, and we bring everyone together and we make sure they get connection with intentionality.
That's great. Thanks, Leon. Yeah, one of the things that we really try to do at launch is really help people focus on finding success within the real estate investment industry. So it's not just text marketing, but we're really trying to bring in the lessons that we learn from other investors and what's bringing them success, even making connections within the community when we see an opportunity to make connections within the community. There's a certain point where our knowledge is going to end. And there you need to just infuse a certain level of expertise. And anytime that I've attended an event at the Collective Genius, I've just walked away floored. It's an absolutely the best collection of real estate investors anywhere. And the things that I learn in those moments or in those meetings is incredible. I always walk away feeling like I got topped up on all of my real estate investment knowledge. So it's really a great resource. I'm really excited to have you be able to kind of dive in with people because I think it's like you said, across levels, it's really a great way to level up and learn a lot of things. So
Appreciate you saying that, Michael. Thank you for
no,
saying.
it's
I mean,
absolutely true.
that's the goal. I mean, it's a group of goal givers that are looking to help each other because you don't join a community unless you're looking to grow. And that's a big thing for us. We do consults with every single real estate investor. If you are someone that doesn't want to scale a big business, that's okay. You're just probably not a good fit for our community because everybody in the room wants to grow at some level. That doesn't necessarily mean doing more deals, may mean more revenue and less deals. The formula may be different, but you are looking to grow and scale.
Yeah, so how do people generally leverage the CG network? Like what's kind of the growth path for people coming in?
Good question. So the first thing that they have to do is they have to get to a certain full-time real estate investor business level first. Coaches are great to get you started, mentors. We're not a coaching community. We are a peer-to-peer community group. Real estate investor, it's a real estate investor. And so when people come to us, generally they're doing at least 2 deals a month consistently, and they can dispose of those assets in any way that they would like. They could be a wholesaler, hoteler, fix and flipper, landlord, single family, multifamily. It just ultimately is someone that's doing a certain amount of revenue or a certain amount of deal flow, and they're looking to take that next step. As you mentioned earlier, you know what you know at this phase of your business. If you're someone that's on this webinar and you've been in the business for 1 year total, Well, you've got 1 year of experience. You join a group like this to be around people that have 2 and 3 and 4 years of experience. And that's where it starts. I'm looking to be around like-minded individuals so I can learn from the mistakes that they've already made and have a blueprint and a map, quite frankly, to where I'm going. Because usually when you're doing it on your own, you're grinding. You're grinding to get to a certain point, and most have grinded to a point where they're doing a certain amount of deal flow. Now they're looking at, okay, I've got the law of the lid here. I've hit the top of what I'm capable of grinding through, and I'm about to burn out. I need scalability. I need help with that. And that's generally when people reach out to us because they want to scale to a point where they're not doing all jobs that are on the org chart. Most people come to us, they have their name on every box within their org chart.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Real quick before I comment on that, for everybody listening, the Q&A is open. I'm sure you've got some questions, so feel free at any point to populate that Q&A box down there, and then we'll either answer the questions in the flow or we'll get to Q&A at the end. So, Leon, you said that you've got people that you notice people that are basically filling every role in the org chart. And we've noticed that we see that a lot too. And again, like in my experience with the collective genius, one of the great things has been whether it's I'm sure you'll get to this soon, but whether it's something that you guys are doing digitally over kind of a Zoom training session or whether it's something that is an on-site opportunity, just giving people the open forum to ask all of those little questions, because those are where the questions usually tend to come from, right? I've seen questions from in getting together with you guys of everything in terms of how are you handling opt-in for television ads. Are you taking those straight to phone? Are you taking those to landing page? To like how do you properly train and set up your acquisitions manager so that you can step away? It's really an incredibly broad level of questions that hit at every part of that org chart, and the answers that I've seen people get and the excitement that others have had about giving those answers and working with other people in the group is really great.
I appreciate you saying that. If you look at the arc of a real estate investor, the goal for most, once they get to us, the number one word that I see, Michael, is scale. I want to scale. When you're sitting in every box in the org chart where it says Leon is the owner, Leon is acquisitions, Leon is dispo, and Leon, all the way across, you've probably, if you've done this for a year or two, you're starting to get to that burnout phase. And they come to us and say, I need help. I've got a bunch of VAs and I'm doing most of the main task on my own. And so for 10 years of the collective genius, we only catered to the investor that was typically in the business 5 years plus and had reached an elite level. What we realized is that there were more real estate investors that needed help in that in-between phase where they're taking that next step. And so those calls that you're mentioning, so we do in-person meetings, that's where your community is. We make sure that we do an event that's very outline driven to make sure that we get intentional connection with training as well. But those calls in between were developed specifically for our select level. This is typically for people doing between 30 and 100 transactions or a revenue equivalency, usually between $500,000 and $2 million in gross profit. Again, wholesaling, fix and flip, all different underneath every niche that's in real estate investing. But we realized was 4 core challenges that we noticed on the applicants that were coming in with the people doing between usually 25 and 70 transactions, single family transactions. And the same goes for those people that were doing flips, but were only doing 5 to 10 of them a year, but the revenue was high because they were in a market like San Francisco. All right. It was marketing, it was sales, financials, but the biggest one was operations, which is I need help because I'm an entrepreneur. I don't necessarily have an MBA. I didn't grow up in corporate America. I've been doing this as the only job I've ever had. I've been my own business owner from day one. and setting up that org chart that technically you're in every seat, but you've never done the org chart. You need help with hiring. Who should I hire? What position should I hire? That's generally the first questions that people are asking on the consult is, how do I start with that? The great news about having a community for now 14 years is that all those people that have come before those other investors that have had success in this group, guess what? They want to give back. So all of our calls are led by our most elite level investors. They're not that are doing the business still. They're not gurus. They're actual investors that are utilizing those same strategies still to this day. And it's all current. And so when you talk about suppression of that learning curve, the biggest thing is that you're learning. The hardest part is that you're learning from someone that's doing 10 times or 100 times what you're currently doing. The biggest thing is, how can I take what they're doing and implement from 0 to 1? And that's what we really focus on our select level and our elevate level, is making sure that that high-end knowledge is compressed down to a simple, easy 0 to 1 roadmap implementation.
Yeah, I think that's really it's really important. You know, my what I've noticed personally in the real estate investment industry is if you're coming in, you're getting started, you're in year one, and even if you're doing really well, if you need to find education resources on sales tactics, where to get your data, anything that's around the mechanics of wholesaling or the mechanics of fix and flip, you can find that. But how to build and scale a real estate investment business, that's much, much, much more difficult to find. And so you guys give people the opportunity to reverse engineer that process from proven examples, right? By networking with the people that got to that point where they're like, wow, I'm not just a real estate investor now. I'm actually building I'm building a business. I'm onto the entrepreneurial side of business building. And I don't have the guidelines here that I had to help me quickly ramp up to close my first wholesale deal, close my second wholesale deal. You guys fill a very, very important gap from my perspective in the industry by giving that reverse engineering process.
That gap we didn't fill until 3 years ago, Michael. Here's what we found. After doing this for 10 years, only catering to the elite, we realized that the bottom tier was our lowest tiers of renewal. Generally, people didn't leave this group. And if they did, they left it after 4 years, which is unheard of in this space. But the bottom tier, when we would ask them, no one leaves. Why are you leaving? Tell us what we could have done better. And most said, you guys are great, but the people that I'm in the room with, I have a good business, but I'm not a business owner. I'm a real estate investor that's a hustler that hasn't. There's a disconnect between where I'm at, million, 2 million in gross profit, and where that person that has 100 employees that I'm definitely learning from. But there's a disconnect. I need more operational help. And so 3 years ago, having seen that level needing a different product offering, that's where the select level group came about. It allowed us to level up our premier level and get to the operational outline breakdown that investors really need. Because let's face it, if you're on this call and you're in year one or year two, and maybe you're doing a couple transactions a year, you will get really good at sales and marketing. But while you're doing that and sitting on all of those seats in that org chart, you're eventually going to come to a point where all that money that you're making is not making you happy because you're doing everything. And you'll look up and you'll say, all right, I am done messing with contractors. I am done messing with all the marketing, taking all the calls. I need to start making the switch from being a real estate investor to running a real estate investing business. That means I have to not only find people, hire them, onboard them, do all the things that most people don't have that experience doing. That's a great transitional time frame where we generally see people jump on board and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I know plenty of people within a community can help me, mentor me, help me. That's what all of that curriculum was built for.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I think you can speak to this, Leon. I think one of the things that makes the collective genius work is really tied to the real estate investment industry, because there's a lot of really supportive behavior within the industry. People want to see other people win, right? It's not this like cutthroat competitive thing. It is on one level, right? Like
Sure.
everybody wants the ROI. Everybody wants to build generational wealth if they can get to that level. But there's also an incredible amount of just support and wanting others to win and wanting to help bring others up, which I think it's just a really great trait about the industry in general.
Here's how I know that statement's true. I have 10-year plus members at the premier level, our highest level within our community, that will introduce me to other investors in their backyard that they're buying deals from, joint venturing, wholesale assignments. They're a lead source for that investor. And that investor will send them over to me and say, this person has reached this spot. I want to buy more from them. So they need now the ability to scale. So selfishly, I can buy more deals from them, and it is the best thing for that individual. And so I see not only at the select level, but even our elite level or our elevate level, which is our entry level group. I have members referring me other members and other investors in their market because they know that that person has reached that point where they need help with the business side. We help with sales, we help with marketing, and you know what's working real time across the United States. But the biggest piece, again, for that mid tier and entry for our community is generally I need help because my finances are like this, and I'm doing everything.
So on that kind of subject of doing everything, anybody's listening in, if you have any questions related to uh, operations, how to step away from certain roles, and any challenges that you're having in that operational area, go ahead and post those questions in Q&A so we can kind of drive that conversation towards those things that you guys need answers on. And in the meantime, Leon and I can cover some of the bigger topics. But if you've got anything in particular that you want to cover in terms of operations, go ahead and post it in Q&A, and we'll cover it in the flow of the conversation. So while that's coming in, Leanne, I know that you mentioned a couple times the different levels that you guys have available for investors. I love that you're expanding and opening things up for people that are a little bit earlier in their journey scaling up. What are some of the challenges that you see people coming in with at each one of those levels? As I know from our perspective, like I can tell you, depending on where a person's at in their business, exactly where they're sitting in the software, what subscription they're on, what their
Yeah,
business, or the reverse. I could tell you based off of what subscription they have exactly where they are in their business,
sure.
right? Because there's a real correlation, right? So I'm sure that the same is true for you guys and the levels that you have people coming in at. So what are some of the unique challenges at each of the three levels?
I wouldn't have known this, or at least been able to answer this until we started our Elevate group in May of last year. And you're right. It's only been a 3-year time frame where we had multiple levels, and the Elevate level was just brought in less than a year ago. But each one was created because we were seeing different challenges, usually at the bottom tier of each community, because their needs were different. So the Elevate group, again, going back to kind of a deal flow, they generally are doing 1 or 2 deals consistently every month, gross revenue from a profit standpoint, generally at that 200 to 300,000, and really looking to get to $1 million. That's their goal usually when they enter that room. Their biggest challenge right now is deal flow. if that community is there to help them double their deal flow, so they can get to the next progression within the community, which is building the business. But you can't build the business until you have consistent, predictable revenue coming in. And that's what the Elevate avatar, that's what that investor is looking for. How do I get to the point where I can actually scale into a business? The select level person, they're busting at the seams. They have probably 3 or 4 VAs, cold calling, texting, some administrative work, but mostly a team of VAs and maybe a few other employees that are all on 1099s. And now they're looking for core values. They're looking to actually build a business that they can scale to a point where they're sitting in a CEO seat 5, 10 years down the line, and the business is running not on autopilot, because that's a myth, but running without them. And that's generally the premier level person is looking to maximize and optimize everything that they're doing. They've been in the business 10 plus years, and so they want to learn from others, generally the younger investor that's coming into the premier group. What are we doing that we should be doing? What's new? They're looking to stay on top. And the best way to stay on top is to be around like-minded individuals that are at the top. And their next challenge that they have is legacy. They've moved on to a different level. They've figured out consistent business, hiring, managers, executives on their team, and now they're looking at how do I get into that next phase? Ideas, industrial, commercial, apartments, that next phase that most real estate investors want to scale to, but not all should or do.
Yeah. So Liam, but speaking of going kind of back to that first level, right?
Sure.
We've got a good question here, in which is a question that we get a lot, which it's a variation of how do I get out of an overworked W-2 without getting myself into a situation where I feel like I'm in an overworked W-2. So the question is, what percentage of the Elevate group is part-time in real estate? I'm going to have to work my way out of my day job, not jump from a skyscraper with a Walmart bag for a
Yeah.
parachute.
Yeah.
I do currently have a profitable real estate business. So
Yeah.
yeah, that transition I think would be a good thing to address.
That's a question and a conversation I have quite often. Generally, as a rule of thumb, we don't accept investors within the community that are not full-time. That said, there are exceptions to every rule. And generally, the exceptions are those sales reps, engineers, someone that has a very flexible W-2, works from home, is able to perform at a high level at their W-2 and still have plenty of time to text and cold call and do all the things that most real estate investors are doing on a daily basis, just maybe less hours. We do have, I think we have 40 total in that new group. And there's probably 3 that have a W-2. I will also tell you that those that sent on a consult with me that have a W-2 that are asking me the question of when do I know, the first thing that I always tell them is if you like what you do and it's flexible, utilize that W-2 for as long as you possibly can, because it makes you the most bankable real estate investor that really, especially with entry level, it makes you tremendously bankable. So if you have a very flexible schedule with a W-2, then utilize that for as long as possible till you get to a point. I've seen people have W-2s. There's a good example of this, of a gentleman in Houston within our community. He's an engineer. He's no longer an engineer, but he was an engineer. He lived in Houston for his business, but his business was in Wyoming. And he had a COO before he was even full-time. He had an integrator, operations manager. slash running day-to-day operations. So I've seen people that said, hey, this W-2 is very important to my job. I need to have somebody boots on the ground. I mean, it's the model I personally run myself. I live in Florida. My business is in Kansas. I have a partner that runs day-to-day operations there while I do this with Collective Genius.
So I know, Leon, I know a lot of people, especially at the higher levels, Collective Genius, they're running several parallel businesses, right? So, and I know that at the early stages, everybody really wants to get out of their W-2. Understandable, right? Like you're getting into real estate to live differently, to have more control of your time. I completely understand the wanting to pull the parachute and bail mentality. But from an operational standpoint, what are some of the advantages to maintaining parallel businesses? One of those businesses being a W-2, right? So, like, what advantages to having a W-2 can that have on your parallel business of real estate investment?
Well, again, the bankability is the number one. Being able to be banks love W-2 employees. You go out and you're an entrepreneur, all of a sudden you're less bankable. So that's the number one. Number two is it allows you to, what I mentioned with the investor that lived in Houston and had a business in Wyoming, it allows you to start to understand that I can't be there because I have this W-2. And so your org chart may be built out quicker if you utilize the revenue from that organization to make strategic hires, not just VAs covering. We're talking about actual employees that you bring on before you make that jump that help you scale to a point where you have no choice but to jump. For instance, if you're a W-2 and you know that you're getting enough leads through your text messaging, let's say, you're getting enough leads that you could have a full-time acquisitions person in, you know that more than likely that would help you double your deal flow overnight just by having another body do it full time. I've seen that model in place where someone at a point had 3-4 employees before they've even left their job, and their business gets to 500,000 plus, and they're like, okay, now this is just a no-brainer. I got to make this jump now. Doesn't mean that there's never a right time, but it's an easier time to make that jump when you have revenue built up. So you can have an advantage of bankability. You could also have an advantage of setting up systems before you even go into the business full time.
If you were to go back, right? Because you mentioned like hiring a VA, and that tends to be the first move for people that are scaling up, people that may be looking to transition out of that W-2. Uh, but there are some limitations to that, right? It's as any small business owner, anyone that you hire isn't going to be you, right? Unless they've been really trained and educated up to the point that you feel like they're going to be able to recreate what you would have done yourself. Right. So if you were to go back, starting from scratch, you've got at least a part-time W-2. Who's your first hire?
EA.
Yeah.
Quick, easy, executive assistant. It should be
Okay.
everyone's first hire. There's a really great training video in our archives. Our very first marketing call that we did in our select group. And the gentleman that did the call said, hey, I'm going to talk about marketing, but until we have a baseline of how that when you start outbound and inbound, if you don't have these positions in place, we'll talk about workarounds, but these are the positions that you need to make sure that you maximize, especially if you're spending money on marketing, that you need to maximize. And so EA is always an easy one because a lot of what you're doing when you're sitting in all those seats is minutia. And anyone can do that type of work. And the best way and the easiest way, here's a quick tip. Got this from Gary Harper with Sharper Business Solutions. And he got it from, I think, Traction. It's an elevate and delegate list. So if I know that eventually I'm going to hire someone, right? On the left side, These are the tasks that elevate the business and bring me joy and energy. And these are the tasks over here that I don't like to do and they're not revenue generating. Those are the tasks that I delegate. Those are the tasks that you hire. And you can do that with a VA. I wouldn't give VA bank information and things like that out of the gates, especially. But you can do that with a lot of those tasks, setting up utilities and all the things that if you're flipping, obviously, some of just the mundane stuff. The EA is some people I hear say that I need to start with an integrator. Doesn't start. That's almost an executive level position. You don't need it. An EA will bring so much, will take so much off of your plate. It allows you to have more time for revenue generating activities without hesitation. Executive assistant.
So I'd love to get with that in mind. You mentioned some of the things that you mentioned that have like an EA or even a VA do are what I would consider internal tasks. So I'd love to get your opinion on in that elevate or delegate, which I love that, by the way. That's great. In
Not
with
mine, I
that,
stole it, but that's what
I,
that's what we do in
thanks,
communities, right? We take
thanks, Gary.
resources.
But with that in mind, I'd like to get your thoughts on what kind of things to take internal and what kind of things to or what operational things to outsource. And I say that because one of the and I'm going to give an internal plug here real quick, but
Sure.
what we do with Launch Leads, which is our done for you text marketing program, is that we take that what can honestly be described as the minutia of text marketing, right? Of setting up batches, sending them out, monitoring those inbound responses, and we optimize text marketing so you don't have to do it. But where we stop is at the point where the homeowner says that they are willing to get onto a phone call to discuss solutions with the real estate investor. Right. So if the handoff is, I can put you in touch with or I can have my colleague call you in the next 5-10 minutes. They have a ton of experience working with homeowners, helping them find unique off-market solutions. If they agree to that call, we want it to stop right there because that stops being text marketing and starts being real estate investment. And we don't
Sure.
want to blur those lines. We want to hand off that lead when it gets to the point of real estate investment. So I see that as a positive way to outsource something that is an important task that requires subject matter expertise versus something that can be done just as an internal task, like organizing your admin files, getting things set up on the G Suite, like all of that I consider to be pretty simple admin internal versus something that is subject matter expertise outsourcing. So I'd love to get your thoughts in general, not just text marketing, but in business building, like in that elevator delegate, what's internal, what's outsourced to as subject matter experts.
An easy way to do that, in addition to the things that you don't necessarily love to do, you look at all the non-generating tasks, revenue generating tasks. If I see any issues at the elevate level, typically, and again, this is people doing a couple deals a month consistently. If I see that there's an issue, it's generally that they're spinning their wheels. They say they're doing busy work. I'm busy, man. I've got so many irons in the fire. And you ask them what it is, and it's what you just said. The word organizing just it just hit with me because you will, if people are looking to double their deal flow, well, the more time that they spend on outbound and inbound, the more deals they're going to do. That's the bottom line. So if you
Mhm.
assign an easy way beyond the elevate delegate is to assign an hourly rate to certain task. For instance, transaction coordinating, right? Someone takes the contract, somebody gives it to the title company, works with the seller, right? That is important, but it doesn't generate. You've got the signatures. Now you need to make a TC needs to make sure that the relationship remains there with the seller. The seller allows for certain things that you need with that particular asset, but that's not generating revenue. You can assign a normal employee hourly rate to that. Call it $15 an hour. right? If it's not $100 plus, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it because it still needs to get done, but you should be looking to outsource those that are revenue generating, especially the high level. So like the first thing that most people want to delegate is acquisitions. And that's why I said an EA is the most important, because the number one salesperson in every single operation is who? The entrepreneur.
Of
So
course.
the first thing you want to delegate is not the sales ability. You want to delegate the menial task first. And that EA that you hire can help you build out the process. So when you do hire an acquisitions person, they have training videos, they have a manual that you can train them on. They can go on ride-alongs with you or sit beside you if you're an outbound dialing company or texting company. So it all comes down to what are the tasks that generate. We are in the house buying business. How do you buy more houses? Whether you're signing them, flipping them, whatever. Stick to those tasks, delegate the rest in time. Don't go overboard and try to delegate everything, because I've seen that be detrimental as well.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to give like if we're going to assign a dollar value to it, like you said, like those $100 tasks, right? You certainly don't want to be giving those to a VA, no matter how well trained they are, right? Like
Right.
that person is never going to be able to take on the role of what you do. Because as the entrepreneur, there are certain things that it's going to take your savvy, your understanding of the business, your ability to speak to a homeowner to get it done, you know? Something that I find is a good way to kind of help you source out some of those tasks other than just the assigned dollar value to get like a really to help organize that is if you just look at things that if you make a to-do list of what you need to do for the day for your real estate business, right? And that can include like, you know, uh, populating lists and launch control, sending out a batch, working those batches, going over a cold call sheet, or if you're working with a cold calling company, checking in on any leads that they've given, or working through with that service that isn't lead generated related, answering your emails, blah blah blah, whatever. And you'll find that usually on that list of to do things, there's the first things you end up doing are like productive procrastination, because you don't want to
Yes.
get to the core thing yet. So you're
Yes.
ticking off the thing that takes 5 minutes or it takes 10 minutes because you're just getting it out of you're convincing yourself that you're just getting it out of the way, but really what you're doing is proactively procrastinating from doing the big thing, right?
Yep.
And so if you can get most of those productive procrastination tasks can be either outsourced internally or reassigned internally, delegated, or outsourced to subject matter experts. And as long as the cost structure is in line, that often will be a really great way to help you just focus on what matters.
And the easy comparison is in your everyday life. Think about it. Tell entrepreneurs this all the time. When you go to the dentist, hopefully you go a couple times a year. But when you go to the dentist, none of us love it, but you have to go. The dentist doesn't check you in. The dentist doesn't confirm your appointment. The dentist doesn't even clean your teeth. Dentist doesn't do the x-rays. There's someone at every phase that is doing those things. And what do? They're the specialists. They come in at the end and they ultimately confirm and advise based upon their expertise. When you find yourself doing teeth cleaning and checking people in, you're going to have to do that. Let me be clear with this, Michael, because I think that there's a misnomer when we're talking about scale that, well, I got to get to this immediately. There is a season for grind. Everyone's business, there's not going to be a lot of balance in the first 3 years of your business. There's just not. You've got to grind to a point where you then get systems, process, people in place so you don't have to do everything. There is a season for grind, no doubt about that. But as you start to grow, especially the question with the W-2 earlier, you can start building now all of those systems while you have active income from your W-2. So you're not taking any money out of the business and you're putting it back into building out the foundation for long-term scale. That's a perfect example of someone that can be doing it right now. Sometimes people may try to do that too early, and you haven't grinded to a point of consistent revenue, and I've seen that be a detriment. So there is a system, there's a season for grind, but just as you get to a point where you're starting to, the revenue is consistent and the wheels are starting to feel like the wheels are starting to fall off, think of all the things that the dentist wouldn't do, nor should you.
Yeah, I think that that's a great analogy, and I think that there's, what I mentioned reverse engineering things before, and I think that if you know that you're going to be a successful dentist, right, and you have this model of like where you want your business to be in 5 years, and then figuring out like what does that day look like? What does a Monday look like 5 years
Yep.
from now for me? And then that helps you kind of focus in on where you want your role or what you want your role to be in that scenario, right? And I find a lot of parallels between, what we try to teach people to do or what we do teach people to do in terms of text marketing and just marketing in general for the real estate investment industry, and what you guys do in terms of business building, because a lot of it to me comes down to reverse engineering. I think in the beginning stages for marketing for real estate investors, most people aren't coming in from a sales and marketing background, right? So they look to activate single channels, right? I'm going to get into text marketing. I'm going to get into PPC. I'm going to get
Smart.
into cold calling, direct mail, whatever, right? But the model that you want to reverse engineer from is that you guys are working with people that every single investor that you work with that's at the top level is in multiple marketing channels, and most of them are using all of those channels in conjunction. Right. So if they're not able to close off of an inbound lead from TV, then they're using text, call, any other avenue that they can to make sure that they open communications channels with those people and get them into their system. They're also using a CRM that they have set up for efficiencies. They have certain people assigned to certain tasks. So like looking through and kind of reverse engineering, and not just sending out a few text messages, but what's your long-term plan for text marketing? So, or for marketing in general, what's your long-term plan for business growth in general? So you can find the shrunken down version of that, right? Like I hear people say a lot is, well, I can't afford TV. I can't afford it's everybody can't afford it in the beginning. The question is, what is the shrunken down for model that you can employ that includes, using your marketing channels together, having a CRM capture system, having that sales funnel pipeline dictated so you know what the next steps are in the pipeline, and where to fill in, where other people fill in the pipeline when you're not able to take it. Going through that thought exercise, I think is really useful.
I'm going to give a shameless plug here for launch and for texting in general. We launched our select group in 2021. And we started with 0, and we now have 165 members, with 20 members going from select to premier and promoting up in the last 3 years. We would not have probably half, if not more, of that select level group had it not been for a platform like yours and text messaging. Why do I know that? Because of what you just said. The investors, the lowest barrier of entry entrepreneurship, in my opinion, with the most upside is real estate investing, based upon my experience in life and business. You don't, the skill set of plumbing, you can't just go and start a plumbing company. You can't just go and overnight be an HVAC contractor. There's education that's involved in that. But from a real estate investment standpoint, you can start texting tomorrow and cold calling and doing those things and start getting leads. The select level investor, the difference, people ask me all the time, what's the difference between the select level, someone doing between 30 and 100 transactions, and someone doing 100 plus transactions? It's execution and time, with one more addition to that. Execution and time with inbound and outbound consistency. The select level investor is really good at cold calling and texting. Those are the two main lead sources for a select level investor. To your point, as someone graduates, they add, when they're ready, they add one of three, usually mail, PPC, or pay per lead, in addition to consistently still texting and cold calling, right? As they continue to grow, now they go a little bit deeper. Now they add television, maybe some radio. They're adding, and again, they're not stopping any of these, because here's the secret. They all work. They all work. Some better ratios than others, but they all work with consistency. And so the progression that you're speaking of, if people ask, or say, I can't afford that right now, maybe not. That's where time and execution, but making sure that you're consistent with your foundation is people that add television, that add PPC, that add all of those inbound, 50, 100, 200 grand a month in marketing fees. Those people don't stop texting and cold calling. They just add it to their business to continue to scale.
Yeah, and I grew up in Northern California. And there's this place called the Winchester Mystery House. And it was this woman
Sounds
that just
whimsical.
yeah, well, she kept building onto her house, and she just kept, I used the word adding, just adding, 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 but with no structural design.
Oh
And
my.
so there's doors that open into nothing and hallways that go nowhere. And
I
it's
think I've
this
flipped a few houses like that.
right? And so when you get into that mode, that's why I think it's so important to sync up with, when you anytime you add a new marketing channel, it's to sync up with you guys and sync up with how you help with the infrastructure. Because if you just add, a big thing that you're going to be adding is inefficiencies. And
Yeah.
it's too much to keep up with. So if you're doing text marketing as your entry point, which is the smartest entry point, right? It's the lowest barrier of entry, and then you want to get into direct mail. Well, the question should be like, I've got, a certain number of non-responders in text. But I've got that channel open still. I'm going to use that as a separate direct mail list. And if they reply, I can tie the two channels together, right? So I can reopen that text channel.
Very
And now
smart.
I've used my marketing together, or vice versa. If I send out direct mail and I get motivated leads coming back, but I'm not able to close every single one, which if anybody on this call can close every single call that comes in from direct mail, you're going to be a billionaire in about 8 minutes, right? So like you're gonna lose a few of them. So if you can re-engage them through text, now you're using your marketing channels in conjunction, and you have no wasted space, right? So it's asking those questions as you add. It's how do I add with efficiency? How do I add with organization so that you get a really crisp, clean process at the end of the tunnel?
I couldn't say it. I couldn't have said it any better. As you continue to evolve, if you continue to use those efficiencies, what you find is that you can also use the reverse, right? Response direct mail, you have the list, now you're texting them. Some text, hey, did you happen to receive our direct mail piece that we sent out? Obviously, the script is a little better than what I just gave you, but they're all working together. The misnomer there is that everybody just spends, and this marketing channel is one silo and this is one silo. I said before, they all work. I missed one thing. They all work together as you continue to scale. But I will say, you do not have to, and I repeat, do not feel the pressure that you have to spend all of this money on inbound channels. Why do I say that? I say that because I have a community of 165 members at our select level. Subtract out some service providers, so let's call it 150 total investors in that group. Of those 150, there are probably, let's say, half of them that still are only texting, cold calling, and then referrals. And they're using those two platforms with referrals as well, direct to agents, specifically is an outbound resource that has been underutilized over the last 3 years, only because agents didn't need us, right? So I have a lot of people that are scrubbing and getting an agent list and starting to build relationships via text first with agents that are doing no inbound, and they're doing 60, 70, 80 transactions a year and just now adding direct mail or television, what have you.
Yeah, and as on that note, I know somebody asked the question about launch leads, Derek. So I'm gonna tie this into what Leon just said, and we'll reach out to you after the webinar and get you some more information on this. But what launch leads does is runs text marketing for people. So we segment the data, we run A/B tests with content, provide the content, get leads coming in, and then pass those leads off at the point when they're ready to have a conversation. Now, something else that we do, that's the obvious day-to-day running, right? But another element that we add into this is that we really encourage people to run CRM retargeting campaigns through launch. So whether it's following up on cold calls that need to be reheated up, following up on PPC leads that didn't close, direct mail leads that didn't close, but using text marketing as a tool to get the captive attention back from the homeowner and get to the point where they will have that call. Another thing that I think is really underutilized in the system that we really push through launch leads is the ability to use text as a way to connect with realtors in your area as well as buyers in your area. There's a ton of it's once you get a lead teed up, right? And you get that person to the point of contract, it's not just a volume business, it's a speed and efficiency business. Right. So if you can use the open channels that you have to take an edge case lead, get that to a realtor and get a finder's fee for that, or have them in the reverse sending you opportunities because you have a close relationship with them and you're keeping up with text, great. If you can get your buyers into a competitive bidding situation because you have open channels with them and you know exactly what they're buying in the next 30 to 60 days or 60 to 90 days, then that full cycle of your business is you're adding efficiency to it by using the tools you already have. You don't necessarily have to add text tag, add additional tools. You just have to optimize the ones that you've got. And that's one of the things that we try to teach and also just try to do through launch leads.
The key point that I wanted to add to that, what you just said, is you backed me up on the realtor texting. I just want to add this for those that are out there. This is hot off the press in regards to what I see as trends. This is, again, why you want to be a part of a community. And if you're not ready for a community, find a mentor in your local market. There's local RIAs. Find someone that's doing more than you, right? You'll learn a tremendous amount. Give them value as well. Don't just ask them to pick their brain. Actually add value, bring them deals as well. But if I've seen a trend in the last 6 months, maybe call it more like 8 months, there was a time where realtor relationships were, sometimes 25 to 50% of real estate investors' businesses. How do I know that? I know that because I ran a flipping business in the Midwest that half of our deals my first year came from the MLS and relationships with realtors. Well, as we all know, in 2019, 2020, 2021, and even the first quarter of 2022, interest rates were so low that realtors didn't work. They put a sign in the yard, if that, and got a cash offer. That has changed. They need us more so than ever, and it's a great symbiotic relationship. We're buyers, or we have done a really good job of finding buyers for these properties that they don't work for, right? They don't try to get built-in dispo list with the highest, investors in the area looking for specific inventory. They just don't do that. You do. So utilize relationships building. If you haven't done that in the past, there is no doubt in my mind that you can add X amount. It depends upon how much work you put in, but I'm seeing people add 6 to 12 deals a year that have never worked with realtors before. And guess what realtors love to do? They love buyers. They love to hear that they've got an investor in their back pocket, and they love to text back and forth. They love to call and ask you what you're specifically looking for. It's easy conversation. It's the easiest texting and cold calling that you'll do.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that, everybody's gone through this experience that a lot of times getting the homeowner to the point of being ready to accept an off-market deal is helping them to eliminate the options that aren't going to work out, right? And so having a close relationship with a realtor and being able to have them kind of back you up on what the cost structure is going to be to go the MLS route, and what the timing is going to be, and it's a symbiotic relationship, like you said. So
Absolutely.
they're just going to help validate you as a professional, help validate you as a trusted resource, and help you eliminate options for the homeowner so that they land on the option that you want, which is a really good off-market deal for you.
Well, they also know the retail market really, really well. And they understand that if somebody still wants a 21 price, that if they list that property is going to sit. And they know what the offer should be. And they know that if they talk to an investor, they're going to get a cash offer. So they understand that they're trying to make a commission. And the only way they make a commission if they're a listing agent is to sell that house. So the reason that it's a great relationship right now is because even though inventory is still low, if a property, which what investors generally buy are properties that need value add, those assets right now, if any are sitting longer than others, it's those, because people are still thinking that they can get the sales price of their neighbor from 2020. And that's not happening anymore. Doesn't mean it won't come back, but again, let me make this a caveat here. Right now, if interest rates start to go back down, which technically we've heard is supposed to happen 3 times this year, don't expect 3% by any means. But realtors need us more right now. And so build those relationships now, because even when they don't need us, guess who you still have a relationship with when they need us again? You're still the cash buyer in their back pocket.
Yeah, that's great advice. The timing makes a lot of sense. Okay, guys, so we're going to wrap things up in about 3, 4 minutes here. If you have any other questions, please populate them in the Q&A, and we'll get to those. Leanne, a couple of things that I wanted to wrap up with. We touched on it a little bit, but if you could maybe give some people a little bit of insight into the balance you guys provide between training and connection opportunities that are done more on a weekly or monthly basis, and then the big group events that bring everyone together.
So first and foremost, if you're joining a community, you need to go in person. Right? It's so important to be around like-minded individuals, especially in this space. No one understands what we do. There are other entrepreneurs out there that get each other. Real estate investors get each other. We have the same issues, contractors, sellers. The conversations are easy to have. Even if you're an introvert. We have some great introverted members that when they come to our meetings, they're not introverted because they're around their people, right? So we do, depending upon the level, we do 3 or 4 in-person events every year. Those are super important. They're 3 days, and you get to work, really get to dial in on what your challenges are. You come in, you find someone in that group with intentionality that can help you with that. And the great thing about this group is everybody is go-givers, and they are there to help you. We always talk about fit. If somebody is not willing to help others, they're just not a good fit for this community. And that's held true on all 3 of our different levels. Now, from a training calls perspective, and Michael, you've probably seen this lately, we've continued to add, because as we've added to our community resources with additional employees, this is what we do full time. This is our life's work, is to help investors scale and grow their businesses. At the Elevate level, our entry level for us, is more of a coaching community. It's not a coach. It's not a direct one-on-one coach, but that's really a blueprint group. So we do a blueprint Thursday call every Thursday with two gentlemen that are in the business doing 400 transactions a year every single year. And we also have an accountability call on Tuesdays. So it's less of a training and more of a coaching blueprint perspective with accountability. The select level, those 4 layers that I mentioned earlier that most people need help with: sales, marketing, financials, and operations. We do a call every Thursday and have for 3 years, and actually have archives. It's Netflix for real estate investors, our portal. We also have a Tuesday call for that group, and usually it's more of a professor's hours. I've got some things that I can't wait till next Thursday or wait till the next sales call I need help with right now. So there's constant support in between meetings, 2 calls a week for both of those communities. And then our highest level has access to those Thursday calls, but also has access to premier level conversations with their strategic training, a second in command COO call, a commercial call. There's a land call. So usually creative finance, that's another one right now that our premier level group is really wanting more of. So most of those calls have come from feedback from our group. And so I used to do all of those calls, my friend, and they are facilitated by somebody on our team. I can tell you this, that we have more today than we've ever had in between. When I joined this community in 2015, there were 4 meetings a year, and that was it. It was more than enough. So the support is above and beyond, and probably a little bit overkill, but I know that if we have a couple people, generally we don't have less than 40 people on any of those calls.
Amazing. All right. So to wrap things up, how do people get started with you guys if they want to get involved any of the 3 levels?
Yeah, the best way is to head to our website, thecollectivegenius.com, THE collectivegenius.com. Collective Genius is taken, so we had to put the Collective Genius as our website. And on that homepage, there are entry points to each one of those communities. When you click on that community, based upon your deal flow or where you're at from a revenue standpoint, it takes you into a video that explains exactly what that community is. And from there, you can apply and see if we're a good fit for you. And I can tell you that we're not always a great fit for everyone. And timing is everything. And so I've just had a member sign up this week that I talked to 2 years ago that wasn't ready at that time. And so we're always going to do what's best for the investor first. And if that means that the timing is not right now, we'll know that through the consult within a 30-minute time frame usually. And by the end of the hour, we know whether it's a good fit or not.
Okay, perfect. Um, on a personal note, I'm gonna see you in a few days. You guys have
Yeah,
the big event coming up here in San
excited for
Diego.
that. Yes.
Me too. I've got a list of business questions and I've got a list of real estate questions that I have for myself. So I'm ready to connect with
Well,
everybody and
this is a
ask
perfect
away.
example. Make sure that you get with me or Matt and make sure that we know what so this is last thing real quick. This is
Yeah,
where
of course.
when you come with intentionality to this group and you say, these are things that I need to make sure that I connect with someone on. Get that to us so we can see it and say, all right, we will make sure you connect with this person, and this person, because those are very specific to what their genius is, hence the name Collective Genius.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, anytime I'm at one of these events, I'm always stunned by the fact that you know literally everyone. Like someone will stand up at like the 8th table to the
Yeah.
left and you'll say, "Oh, hey, Jim, great to hear from you. Listen." And then answer, I'm like, how does he do that? Like
It's
that's
a
a
it's a
lot.
it's
That's
a
a lot of
it's a
people to know.
it's a blessing and it's a curse, and it's getting worse with age. But in a former life, I did radio play-by-play for minor league sports, and so
Oh, wow. Okay.
I would be in Cleveland on one night, in Montreal the next, and in Baltimore the next, and I would have to know the entire roster of those teams, whether it was indoor soccer or arena football. And I could just tell
Yeah.
you the indoor soccer names were much harder than
Yeah.
the arena football ones were. But that's where it started. And I've always, I think it's very important. I learned from a mentor in my corporate days. It's very important. you make people feel special when you remember their names. And it's always something that I felt like is important to this community, is that at least one person knows every single person.
Absolutely. Well, Leon, I really appreciate the time. Invaluable information as always. I really encourage everyone to go to the Collective Genius, look into it. It is an incredibly useful resource to have, and it's like I said, it's just an amazing supportive community. Everybody wants everyone else to win. I love going to the events, love teaming up with everybody. So yeah, I very much encourage everyone to follow through and look into this if you're ready.
Thank you for the opportunity, Michael. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good afternoon.